Welcome to episode number 121 of the Civil Engineering Podcast, the first podcast dedicated to helping civil engineering professionals succeed in work and life. While this is the 112th episode of the Civil Engineering Podcast, this is only the 11th episode we are broadcasting via video on YouTube, which we plan to do more often, so please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you'd like to listen to any of our past 121 episodes, please visit civilengineeringpodcast.com. I am your host, Anthony Fasano. I am a licensed professional engineer who practiced as a civil engineer, but eventually decided I wanted to focus more on inspiring engineers rather than doing the engineering myself. So since then, I've written a book entitled Engineer Your Own Success and have traveled the world helping engineers. And through this podcast, we try to bring you information that can help you succeed in every episode. I've also had the honor of authoring the American Society of Civil Engineers Careers and Leadership column for the past few years. In this episode, I will be speaking with Bill Thomsen, who is the president and CEO of Urban Engineers of New York. We will be talking about his career journey and what factors have helped him to progress from engineer to CEO. He'll also talk about how his engineering management degree has helped him. Let's jump right in. Bill Thomsen, Urban Engineers, welcome to the Civil Engineering Podcast.
Thank you, Anthony.
So Bill, thanks for having us. You're one of the leaders here at Urban Engineers. I gave our listeners a little bit of an intro on you, but what I'd like to kind of hear in your own words is your career progression, because, you know, as an engineer, many engineers want to go into leadership. Some have a plan, some just end up there, and I'm kind of interested in your career progression.
Well, thank you, Anthony. And I'm a fan of your podcast. I have to say, I've seen them a number of times, and they're really interesting and enlightening in terms of what you learn about people, and that's what our business is all about.
That's right. Thank you, Bill.
So I worked in our family construction business, which was a 3-generation construction business, and learned how to build houses from the time I was a young man, and some custom homes, light commercial buildings, libraries, things like that. And I probably had, along with my father, learned how to, my father taught me how to build things. So I had that interest from the time I was really a young man. Went on to Clarkson University, one of the great engineering schools in the country, and then got out of school. I have a great way of placing people, and I went to work for the railroad, Conrail, and worked in Cleveland, Michigan, and Chicago, and then came back after working on the railroad to work at Urban Engineers in Philadelphia, and to work on the Center City commuter rail connection and the airport high-speed line, which the tunnel project was the outstanding civil engineering achievement in the country at the time.
Right.
And that was just a phenomenal opportunity for a young man who really had learned how to build, was interested in building, and then got into construction management. So my career started with working in the field and learning things from the ground up. I came back to urban. I wanted to learn a little bit more about design.
Sure. Well, that's interesting already. Just even at this early part of the interview, I think something to highlight that's important is, Bill is at a very high level right now of leadership in an engineering firm, but it's obvious that he grew up with very hands-on experience. And I always think, especially in the civil engineering world, and I feel like I'm saying this in every episode, but you can't get enough of that hands-on experience, especially when you're younger, that gives you, kind of that 360 big picture view of projects, of people, of how things work, that only add value when you're standing on a site, or when, better yet, when you're in the office talking to a client and you can visualize what's going on the site because you've been there before. So that just must have been invaluable. That experience must continue to help you to today.
It does, and really, it's all part of any time you have a challenge. We always, in the civil engineering world, we always tell people to go out, feel it, touch it, visit the site, do those kinds of things, because it puts a frame of real reference to the problem solving that we're all very good at.
Right. So you came back to Urban for design experience.
And then I progressed through my career at Urban as a railroad and transit leader in the firm, and then we obtained some very large nationwide Federal Transit Administration contracts where we were overseeing very large projects.
Right.
And after that, I was promoted to Senior Vice President when we were asked to take on some of the big projects here in New York City. And so that was a great step up in my career. And in 2011, we began to structure a transition with the company, and with partners for our New York operation here, we purchased this company, and then we went 100% ESOP with our Philadelphia firm.
So when you were in that stage of that you just explained, getting involved in some of these large railway projects, were you of the mindset of I want to be president of this company, or I want to be a high-level leader in this company, or were you just an engineer developing, learning about everything? When did that cross your mind?
I was always very interested in marketing and developing business because of my work with my dad. You know, I mean, we were always on in the construction business. We always had to answer the call for the client, the job, the invoice,
no, it's good experience.
That job needs material. And so I would say I always had it in the background. I knew, and as we all do, we learn what we know and what we don't know. So we have to, continue to study and practice in the area of the business that we try to provide expertise in. My area of expertise would be public transportation, right now.
So at what point was it that you really became part of the executive leadership team?
So between 2000 and present, in the 2014 timeframe, we started the transition from the original leadership team to a new leadership team. And then in March of 2015, we purchased this company. And we really act as leaders in both firms, and it's a tremendous organization. I've worked here for a long time, and I've got great partners and leaders and others in the firm that help us do a great job. So we're very proud to have ascended through the third generation, and Ken Fulmer, my other partner and leader in the firm, has done a great job in helping us get there.
And just for context, roughly how many people work at Urban Engineers, just so people understand what we're talking about?
Yeah, so we have about 400 to 450 people in about 16 offices around the country. In the New York operation, we have approximately almost 100 people between our operations here in the field in New York City and also in our Buffalo office, and then people that may work in other offices that work on New York projects.
Got it. Okay. And I'm here in the New York City offices here at Penn Plaza with Bill. And if you're listening, obviously you can't see us, but we're on YouTube as well, and we got some New York City background. Didn't quite get the Macy's sign in there, but we're here in New York. So, Bill, you've worked on literally some of the biggest engineering projects in the world. I mean, that's a statement that's true. What does it take? And I know you can't give me a one-sentence answer here, but let's talk through it a little bit. What does it take to manage a project of that scale? We have listeners out there, civil engineers that either are project managers, they're aspiring to be project managers. Some of them want to work on these big, impactful projects. What does it take?
So Urban was lucky enough to have served in project management roles on a number of these large projects. And, there are many people on these projects, and it's not one person or one group. There are planners, there are designers, there's construction managers, there's project managers. So it takes an entire team.
Sure.
And so, but you have to always be focused on the fundamentals of project management, which is the control of time, cost, and quality.
Okay.
And then every decision that you make has an impact on how you control those things, and then how you evaluate those things, and what the impact to the overall goal of the program is. So, that's critical. Additionally, communication. Effective communication is the key. When you work on very large projects, sometimes it's not easy to make sure that you're communicating well with everyone. The new buzzword is trust the process, right? Trust the process. You have to work together. You have to have a strong leadership team, and you have to challenge yourself to reach the goals of the program so that you're persistent, even though sometimes with a mega project it's not always apparent that you're achieving goals day to day.
Right.
So
you need some point of reference to see that you are making progress. Because
right.
It may not be easy to see projects like this.
Exactly. So keeping an eye on the vision. Sometimes you have to compartmentalize the goals for different segments of the projects. When projects get to be over $1 billion or $2 billion, they're classified now as mega projects, and you may lose sight of those projects as they extend out years, maybe even decades. And so you have to understand what the goals are, consistently reinforce obtaining those goals, and then achieve success through reinforcement of the vision of the project's goals and successes.
Yeah, I can see that because I could imagine working on I've worked on some big projects myself as a civil engineer, but not as big as some of these projects that Bill's managed. And I can see that that's one of the challenges as a manager is to keeping your team engaged. Like you said, it could be 10 years.
Yes.
So, coming to work every day, working on the same project for 10 years, again, these projects are interesting, complex, and intricate, and I'm sure there's mini projects within the project. But I think it would still be the manager's responsibility in some way, shape, or form, and maybe with the goals, as Bill suggested, to keep people engaged, keep them on track. And what I really like about what Bill said there was cost, time, and quality. Because at the end of the day, you could be working on a project that's $50,000 or $50 million, and you're going to have cost, time, and quality, right?
You will, and you have to make sure that every decision you make, you're thinking about those metrics, because every decision can impact those metrics and the ultimate success of the program.
That's great. Now, you spoke about your father earlier at the construction company. It sounds like he was a big influence on you in terms of your career. What was it like, having a parent working in the industry that was able to teach you and mentor you in your career?
Yeah, it was great. My father was a great man. He was the third generation leader of our family construction company. And really, I say almost everything I learned about management, I learned from my father, who really was better than I am. Right. Most of the things that I do. He really was a sort of a true role model. But, being a great listener, he was strong on details, very capable in dealing with what I call the undefinables in management in a positive way. So you have to be important. But really, most importantly to me, he was a wonderful example for our family, and which means the most to me. And at Urban, really we consider family first is our motto. Family, the profession, our clients, and then our business. If you focus on the first two, you'll be able to deal with the latter two. So
that's great.
We're very, very concerned about that work-life balance that way.
That's great, and it is nice to hear that your father was kind of that mentor, and he taught you. And like I said earlier, that hands-on experience we know, especially in the world we live on, is really valuable. Now, in terms of experience, I know you also have a degree in engineering management. How has that helped you? Because I get questions on that a lot from engineers, younger engineers trying to make credentialing decisions, degree decisions, and I know it can be different in everyone's case, but in your own case, how has it helped you?
Well, it provides you a broad knowledge of the business of engineering. And our first president was a great man, Bob Olson. He emphasized that it was our responsibility to balance the business and the profession in every project. So he was another great leader. We've been blessed by a number of great leaders in the firm. But, it's not apparent when you take your engineering management program or a lot of the education that you get upon completion that there's all of a sudden an enlightenment, right? I'm going to manage projects.
I know that for sure,
I'm going to do better. But as you move on in your career, and you're involved in businesses or companies as you are, or different organizations, the tools that you learned become useful for you.
Right.
You know, whether it's marketing, communications, banking, finance, those types of things. You know, those were really not emphasized in our undergraduate degree, which is highly focused on you know, scientific and technical things. You know, today, the engineering management skills that I learned in my engineering management degree probably serve to consume most of my time.
Sure.
In the business. You know, worrying about, you know, getting paid and invoicing and making sure the cash flow is there and other things like that.
That's interesting, and I'm glad to hear that. And you know, for those of you out there considering different options, you know, think about your goals, think about where you want to go in your career, but know that, you know, the business side of engineering is important. And again, we get back to that cost, time, quality, right? The cost and time are the business side, the quality is the engineering side. So, you know, every project has both of those components, and you may not be dealing with, as a younger engineer, you may not be dealing with the business ones, so to speak, right now. You're certainly impacting them. You may not be dealing with them until you get into a management position, but having any kind of training on things of that nature can certainly help. So right now, Bill, what's exciting to you about the civil engineering industry?
So, you know, there's so many things that are exciting about the civil engineering industry. I've been very active in ASCE and all the things that are going on in civil engineering, you know, and all the things that we've done. But the advances in computer simulation, for design, for project program management, artificial intelligence, you know, the ideas of things like autonomous vehicles. In fact, today, I heard that Uber and Lyft are teaming up with Waymo in Phoenix to launch the unmanned vehicle. You know, and that's just, you know, and whether you espouse, you know, or a proponent for any of that or all of it, you know, it's just amazing, though, that the things that will occur and the impacts that these things will have throughout our future. You know, the use of photo and video material today, you know, for baseline information, for data. And you know, the other thing that's really exciting is the young staff that you know, hire and train are so capable, and inherently they deal with this medium and new technology just, you know, at a whole quantum better than we do. So those are, you know, fascinating things. You know, there's almost an endless sort of supply of information that civil engineers can deal with, and how we deal with it better to solve the civil engineering problems, I think, is really what's exciting.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of exciting things here, and I agree with you on that last point. The civil engineering students coming out of school today are amazing. I mean, in terms of, you know, what these interns can accomplish, even if you have an intern for the summer. Like, I remember even, you know, when I was doing civil engineering work, I couldn't keep up with them in terms of giving them stuff and teaching them stuff. They would be like, what's next? I did this. So that is exciting. So on the flip side of things, Bill, what's worrying you about the civil engineering industry right now? Or what's on your radar that you're aware of that you're...
Well, you know, the supply of young engineers, it doesn't seem it's increasing at the level of demand. You know, and that's so I fear really that the perception with young people in this engineering profession is that it's a commoditized technical profession as opposed to a true profession. And so I worry about that a lot, that we're not viewed necessarily as a well understood profession, even though it's a tremendously satisfying career. You know, after all the things that we've done in life, you know, you walk around and look at these wonderful monuments that have been created over much of your life, and you say, what could I really have done better? You know, so that's a great thing. We also need to emphasize, you know, the STEM education, all the aspects of STEM, and all the things that you know, that we're concerned about with science and technology. You know, people have not necessarily focused on communicating, educating at the early levels, and understanding what we need to do to motivate and change so that our science, technology, engineering, and math curricula are attractive to young people.
Young people, especially when they're competing with other IT and finance and other types of industry. And those are two real problems. And I know that first one, for a fact, we get calls from companies all the time that are just trying to hire people that can't even keep up.
As are we.
Right. So that's a real problem, and which comes back to the second point that Bill mentioned is if we don't have enough STEM education and inspiring kids to go into engineering, there will not be enough engineers for all the exciting things that Bill talked about that are coming down the pike, so to speak. So in terms of your own career, Bill, what are some of the goals that you're focused on right now, being that you are at a high level at this point in your career? What are you thinking about in terms of career goals?
So, our goals here are to develop and grow our mid-sized company in the areas where we can serve our clients, to meet to be one of the best in the profession. And we've always tried to be best in class, and whether it's in program management or construction management, or the transportation industry, or the building facilities industry. So we really want to take our company to grow into a national company. We have started that, but we want to grow beyond our very strong presence in the East Coast to a strong presence in Texas and California, to really serving all regions in the country, with the brand of Urban Engineers. And we've been very successful with our history so far. And then also to diversify the firm's services so that we're providing planning, design, construction, program management in all areas, so that we can satisfy this huge emerging demand for the infrastructure needs of the country. And I guess lastly, just to create and develop a plan to advance the company for the fourth and fifth generation. When we started, our goal was to keep urban. And it's always challenging, but when you work in a great institution for many years, as I have, we want this institution to live on sustainably forever. So, I'm looking forward to the next 100 years for Urban. And next year we'll celebrate 60 years as a company. So that's an exciting time, but also to try to create a place where people can work, enjoy their life, and have really a rewarding and satisfying career.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's great to hear that you guys are very forward-thinking and thinking about strategy and the life cycle of the company, beyond this generation of leadership. So it's certainly a nice thing to hear. I'm sure listeners out there hope that their companies are doing the same. Mm-hmm. So the last question I have here in this first segment, and then we'll go into our hot seat with Bill. At your level, very high up, you got a lot going on. One of the big things that always comes up with civil engineers that I talk to is, maintaining a level of work-life balance. It's a difficult thing in today's world. We're all connected 24/7 with devices, etc. So at your level, is it possible to have work-life balance? What would you say to engineers out there that want to aspire to be leaders in a company? Is it possible? How do you do it?
Well, it is possible. I have always, and I had the advantage of having a great dad, but I achieved that work-life balance through my family. So I always I just have an incredible wife. My high school sweetheart.
There you go.
Okay, Nyack High School, and we were destined to be together. We have great kids. They have great spouses, significant others. I have grandkids. I know I'm not old enough.
I wouldn't have guessed that. Yeah.
Right. But I also don't take myself too seriously. I think that you have to focus on what you're doing, but don't think that you're the only opinion in the room. I play ice hockey.
Oh, that's great.
I run and play golf whenever I can squeeze it in, get things like that done.
Well, how does that work, though, right there, for example? And that's the part, squeezing it in. So do you really make a conscious effort to try to do these things on a regular basis? I mean, you have to, right?
I do. We ran the Broad Street Run on Sunday.
Okay.
And, I try to squeeze in a game of hockey once a week if I can.
Okay.
But it's, none of that takes precedent over an important business activity, of course. But I stay very busy. I really do. I have a full agenda, and that helps also create the work-life balance. You whether it's a social activity with your family, making sure that you attend all the events and do all the right things, or making sure you follow through on your commitments at work.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think that, to your point there, I do think the personal mindset or outlook, like you said, try not to take everything too seriously, is an important aspect of this, because you may work a lot, but your mindset and outlook can certainly drive your work-life balance. It doesn't mean that you have to work a certain hours a week to have a good work-life balance. It means that you're enjoying each of those things when you're able to experience those things. And listen, I met Bill once at a luncheon, a month or so ago, and I contacted him, and he said, yeah, come on in, do the interview. He was very, happy to share his time, which again tells you something about someone in Bill's position, interested in giving back, sharing advice. And I would imagine that all that stuff and that mindset really plays into, your overall career and satisfaction.
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
It really does. I enjoy the relationships.
Yeah, relationships are everything in our profession. I mean, that just from growing up in the building industry, being on sites, dealing with people every single day.
Yeah.
It's a critical component. So we're here with Bill Thomsen at Urban Engineers. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and we're going to put Bill on the civil engineering hot seat. I hope you are enjoying this episode of the Civil Engineering Podcast, which is produced by the Engineering Management Institute. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel here for more podcast episodes and for all of our Engineering Manager 80/20 Shorts videos that we publish weekly, where we interview successful engineering managers. Now it's time to jump into our Civil Engineering Hot Seat segment. All right, so we're back here in New York City. We're here with Bill Thomsen at Urban Engineers, and it's time to put Bill on the Civil Engineering Hot Seat. Bill, you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, first question. Are there any specific rituals that you practice every day? For example, do you have a specific morning ritual or lunchtime routine, something that you do consistently on a daily basis that contributes to your success?
Well, yeah, I do. I get up around 5 a.m. I have coffee, a banana, multiple vitamin, and orange juice.
Okay.
And then I get the daily word, which is a little biblical expression from my wife. It's a tradition that her mother started many, many years ago. It's really a nice spiritual message.
Sure.
It's not long, but it keeps you well grounded no matter what you're doing. If you just have a few minutes to read the daily word, you understand then what today is going to be about.
And you get it every day, right?
I get it every day.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So I keep a to-do list, and I try to accomplish things on my to-do list, but I remain very flexible for changes, because I know that inevitably every day I'm going to be dealing with changes. And that's a key element of what our jobs are.
Yeah.
Not to be just focused on your to-do list.
Yeah, I was going to say, welcome to civil engineering, right? Every day is completely different, and you get curveballs every day. But
And then lastly, I take time to maintain the personal relationships every day. I do, sometimes it's not easy to fit those in, but it's very important to take time to talk to people and maintain those personal relationships. So I do that. And, pray.
Yeah, hey, listen, I'm a big believer of routines helping people to be successful.
Yeah.
Don't have to be hours every day, but things you do, like you said, the daily word is a short, grounding, but it's consistent.
It is.
That's where I think that these routines can help you, because you do it every day. It helps you to get into some kind of rhythm, and then you can be successful. So those are great. Thank you for sharing those with us. What is one book that you recommend to engineers regularly, or just one book that you have found to be extremely helpful in your professional or personal development? It doesn't have to be engineering related.
Yeah, so the one thing that we did when our second generation transition occurred was we put our leadership team through Dale Carnegie.
Okay.
And so the Dale Carnegie Golden Book is really something that I would say is really very interesting. It's the principles are time tested, it's how to treat people right.
Right.
It's not, so we all work in teams. Nobody does a civil engineering project by themselves.
Right.
So you have to treat people right. And these principles are just common sense.
Common sense.
You know,
they
it's
really
like the
are,
golden rule.
Yeah.
You know. So those are principles that I actually have referred to
Sure.
over time, and I keep that with me all
Yeah,
the
no.
time. So it's very it's just interesting. You wouldn't think that it's a simple book like that would be something that could guide you through your profession, but it really can. I also, you know, I'm an athlete. Been involved with coaching, motivational books by Scotty Bowman,
Okay.
Wayne Gretzky,
Okay.
John Wooden.
Sure.
You know, I love those kinds of things. I like reading about naval history. I think history is important for where you've been and where
Sure.
you're going. You know, you should refer to it in your own business. You should refer to it in the future. And the one thing that we learned at Dale Carnegie was don't criticize, condemn, or complain. So if you have a team and you can get people
Right.
to all act without criticizing, condemning, or complaining, you have the beginnings of a process for success.
That's great, and that's exactly what I love hearing frameworks like that, because it's easy for people to remember. And when you're in a meeting, you can remember those 3 C's and, you know,
Right.
focus on that. And it's funny, we've done about 120 episodes of the Civil Engineering Podcast, and I think 50% of the guests have said Dale Carnegie in the book question, which just shows you that it's a lot of people are interested in it, but like Bill said, there's a lot of common knowledge in it. You would
Yes.
think that most people would do that, but again, every time I listen to the book, I come up with something different. I try it, I implement it, and it works. All right, Bill, so think back to one of your favorite managers that you've had in your career as an engineer. You don't have to name names unless you want to. Why was that person your favorite? What did he or she do to make them your favorite?
So first, the ultimate manager, my mother, right? Everyone needs to give credit to the mothers of the world.
Sure.
They're true managers, you know. But in business, you know, I talked about my father. In the railroad business, I had Jerry Kossel, Bob O'Leary. I can name names.
Sure.
I'm fine with it. Dan Wessels, Jim McPhillips, General Meredith, Bob Belfie when I was working on the city projects in Philadelphia. And then at Urban, I was lucky enough to have known the founders of the company, our second generation owners, Ed Dialba and Joe McAtee. And more recently, great professionals like Mysore Nakaraja, who was big at the MTA here in New York, Sal Mancini, a big construction company guy, and recently even Veronica Ronnie Hakem at the MTA. Those are people that I think we can aspire to follow, understand, and see great trends in management. But little story, I had a gentleman who worked for me that I really admired a lot because of his listening skill and his teamwork. And you really only had to say one thing to him, and next thing that you knew, it was done. So the level of empathy and confidence and determination that he had in conducting himself in the way he conducted himself were traits I really admire, and I still strive to accomplish today. So
That's great.
while communicating with colleagues, I think that, you know, ability to act, to listen and act is a tremendous skill.
That's great, and I like what you said there at the end, kind of from, you know, flipping it around. As a manager, you know, Bill mentioned the importance of, you know, someone listening and kind of taking it in and taking action, because, you know, you're right. We're in a little bit of an information overload world, which you mentioned earlier when we were talking about all the information that's out there. So it is easy for people to lose focus. And if you're able to focus on your manager and the goals of the project, you know, I think that can help you as an engineer in terms of progressing your career. I mean, obviously for Bill, this one person, you remember that person.
Absolutely.
Because of their attentiveness, so that's important. All right, I've got one final question. We call it the civil engineering career elevator advice question. If you got into an elevator with a civil engineer and you had about 30 to 40 seconds, Bill, with him or her, and you had to give them career advice in that short period of time, what would it be?
Well, I would say, you know, aim high. There's nothing that you can't do in your life if you try and never give up. your accomplishment will be proportional to your hard work and determination. Every time that you think you've done it all, you'll find there's really another great challenge out there waiting for you. And, you can take it on. Never stop looking forward into the future.
Sure.
This is something that I really learned with the different big projects. I thought, my God, I've completed this big project. This is the end. This is the career-ending job. And then, realize that you and only you can control your career. If you need to change your situation, only you can do it. And it's not necessarily by changing companies. It's really starting with you. So you have to do it yourself.
Right.
You have to learn to get the work, to do the work, and to get paid.
Right.
And you have to know how to advance yourself in your own organization. So, and if you really want to succeed, develop a formula for your company or organization that includes yourself in the concept. So those are the things that I would say to a young civil engineer as you move ahead and try to advance your career.
Yeah, that's great, and I love that point about you're in control of your career, and you have to take control of it, and you have to take action if you want to make changes or if you want to get somewhere. And I agree with Bill. Taking action doesn't mean you have to leave a company to get to a goal. It may mean you just have to change things up, or you have to do something different, or add a new skill set. So you are in control, and that's why we publish this podcast, to try to give you advice from people like Bill that have been successful in the industry, so you can take some of that and then take action on it. Because you can listen to all the podcasts in the world, but if you don't take action on some of these things we're talking about, you may not really get to where you want to go. So Bill Thomsen, Urban Engineers, thank you so much for spending some time on the Civil Engineering Podcast.
Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate your coming in.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Civil Engineering Podcast on YouTube, produced by the Engineering Management Institute. We're always looking for new ways to help engineers become effective managers and leaders. You can view all of our content on our website at engineeringmanagementinstitute.org, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel here for our weekly videos. Until next time, please continue to engineer your own success.